3.7. In this lesson, we're going to look at some word problems, and we have a few steps that we have to follow for these word problems. In our word problems, we're going to be multiplying a 2-digit number times a 2-digit number, but there's also going to be additional steps that we need to take into consideration. So it's really important that we read our word problem all the way through and understand what it's asking us to do. Let's take a look at our first word problem. Miss Perez orders shirts for her STEM club. She orders 45 shirts. Each shirt costs $17. She then pays $20 in shipping and handling. How much does it cost for Miss Perez to order shirts? When we see a word problem, we've talked about drawing pictures in the past. Those can help us sometimes. Sometimes just writing an equation is just sufficient for us to solve our problem. In this case, we don't necessarily have to draw a picture. There's nothing really to visualize other than the fact that she's ordering some shirts and has to pay for shipping and handling. So let's first break down how much it costs for her to buy the shirts, and then we have to take a look at the shipping and handling piece. So it tells us that she orders 45 shirts, and each word is important. We see that a lot when we're doing some multiplication. That helps us know that we have to do some multiplication. Each shirt costs $17. So that's going to be the bulk of what our problem is. We need to figure out how much the shirts cost. So we're going to be multiplying 45 times 17 to identify how much the shirts cost. She then has to pay $20 in shipping and handling. After you order something, and you have to pay shipping and handling, that's added on to the end of your purchase. So that's going to be added on to the end of our purchase here. Now our first step in this problem, if we follow our order of operations, it tells us we have to do multiplication first. So that's what we're going to do. We need to multiply 45 times 17 first, and then we're going to add our 20 in the end. So let's go ahead and multiply 45 times 17. I'm going to use the area model off to the side to do this. On your notebook paper that you have out, you should be working this problem out with me. So we're going to take 45 and expand it into 40 and 5, and we're going to take 17 and expand it into 10 and 7. We're then going to write the multiplication problems for each rectangle inside of our rectangle. This way we don't forget a step, we don't forget a zero, and it's a really easy way for us to go back and check to make sure we did our work correctly. We're then going to solve for each of our partial products. By crossing out those zeros, it's a way so that we don't forget our zeros. Sometimes we forget our zeros, and that can throw our whole problem off. We're then going to add our partial products, so we're going to add down. And then at the end, we're going to add our two pieces together to find our product. We end up with a product of $765. So I'm going to take this $765 that I have as my product, and that's going to be what my product is for 45 times 17. So I'm going to write it underneath my little caret. And then I need to go and bring down my 20 because that needs to be added to my product. And so I'm going to do that addition, and then that's going to give me the answer to my problem. How much money does it cost for Miss Perez to order shirts? When I add these two numbers together, that's going to be my answer. So 765 plus 20 gives us $785. So it costs Miss Perez $785 to order shirts for her club. We had two steps to this problem. We first had to multiply, and then we had to add. We looked at our word problem, identified what we were doing, wrote out our equation, and then solved our equation. That's really the important step to solving these problems, is to identify what we have to do. Let's take a look at our next problem. In each of Jaden's football games, he has scored at least 14 points. He plays 7 games per season and has been playing for 11 seasons. At least how many points has Jaden scored in his football career? Okay, we have a few steps here that we need to follow. So let's take a look at our problem. It says in each of Jaden's football games, he has scored at least 14 points. In each game, he's scored 14 points. He's played 7 games per season, so he's scored 7 games in each of 14 points in each of 7 games. So that's going to be multiplication. And then it says 7 games per season. We need to know how many seasons he's been playing. He's been playing for 11 seasons. That means we have additional multiplication here. So we have 3 different numbers that we're multiplying here to solve this problem. Now when I look at this problem, I want to identify what are the 2 numbers that I should multiply together first to make this problem easiest for me to solve. If I multiply 14 times 7 first, I'm going to end up with quite a large number. I don't have to multiply 14 times 7 first. I can multiply 2 other numbers first. The commutative property tells me it does not matter in this case which problem I multiply first, which 2 numbers. I could multiply any of them. 7 times 11, that's a really easy problem for me to solve in my head. And that's going to give me a 2-digit number, and I know how to multiply a 2-digit number times a 2-digit number. So when it comes to this problem, I'm going to break down what am I going to solve first. It makes the most sense for me to solve this piece of my problem first. 7 times 11, and that gives me 77. Then I'm going to bring down my times 14. And now I have a problem that I know how to solve. Now, could you start by multiplying 14 times 7? Absolutely. That's just extra work for you. The goal in these types of problems is to figure out the least amount of work that you can put in to get your answer. So by multiplying 7 times 11 first, that's the least amount of work because I know I can do that in my head. I want you to go ahead and multiply 14 times 77 now using any method. I'm going to go ahead and solve this problem using regrouping. So I start with 4 times 7, and that gives me 28. I put my 8 and carry my 2. Then I'm going to multiply my ones place times my tens place. So 4 times 7, 28, plus 2 gives me 30. I'm going to put my placeholder down underneath my ones place because I'm starting with my tens place. So my answer needs to start in my tens place for the next problems. So 1 times 7 gives me 7, and then 1 times 7 again gives me 7. And I'm going to add these 2 pieces together to find my product. And I have 1,078 as my final product. So the question's asking me at least how many points has Jaden scored in his football career. I can rewrite this as at least 1,078 points in his football career. All right, let's take a look at our next problem. Each of 5 bird watchers reported seeing 15 birds in a day. How many birds would be reported over 24 days? Each of 5 bird watchers reported seeing 15 birds in a day. How many birds would be reported over 24 days? What would the equation be to solve this problem? If I was setting up this problem, each of 5 bird watchers is seeing 15 birds. So I would know that I need to multiply 5 times 15 to figure out how many they see in one day. Then I need to figure out how many they would see over 24 days, which means there's additional multiplication that I'm going to need to do. Just like with the last problem, try and find the problem that makes the most sense to solve first. It doesn't make sense to solve 15 times 24 first in this case. It would make more sense to solve 5 times 15, so that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to solve 5 times 15, then I'm going to multiply my product times 24. So solve 5 times 15. Some of you can do this in your head. When we're multiplying 5 times 15, we can think, well, 15 times 2 is 30. 15 times 4 is 60. So 15 times 5 would be 75. If you didn't do it in your head and you wrote it down, you could have used any method to solve that. Then we're going to bring down our times 24, and we're going to multiply 75 times 24. I'm going to use the area model to solve. Go ahead and solve using any method. When I set up my area model, it looks like this. I'm going to cross my zeros out, place them down. 7 times 2 is 14. 5 times 2 is 10. Add my 0. Cross this 0. I'll bring it down, and I have 28, 280, and 20. I'm going to add my pieces to find my partial products, and then I'm going to add my partial products together to find my final product. When I add those products together, I get a total product of 1,800. So my question's asking me how many birds would be reported over 24 days, and I could solve that problem by saying 1,800 birds. Again, it's important for me to specify what my answer is related to, so here I have birds. Here's our next problem. An average of 34 fish were caught each day in June. An average of 46 fish were caught each day in July. How many fish were caught in both months? Hint, there are 30 days in June and 31 days in July. What would the equation be to solve this problem? All right, well, we know that there are 34 fish that were caught each day in June. So I need to think, well, how many days are in June? There are 30 days in June. So to figure out how many fish were caught in June, I would multiply 34 times 30. Then I want to know how many fish were caught in July. 46 fish were caught each day in July. I need to know how many days are in July, and it tells me in my problem that there are 31 days. So to figure out how many fish were caught in the whole month of July, I would multiply 46 times 31. Then my problem is asking me how many fish were caught in both months. So once I find these two products, I'm going to need to add them together. That's my equation to solve this problem. Go ahead and solve for 34 times 30 and 46 times 31 to get our final answer. I'm going to use regrouping to solve. So over here, when I'm multiplying and I have a number with a 0 in it at the end of the number, like the number 30 or 20 or 50, whatever, I'm going to cross that 0 out and place it down in my product. This is like my placeholder. I don't have to multiply 0 times 4, 0 times 3. It's going to give me 0. I want to start in my tens place. In order to do that, I have to put my placeholder. That's why I bring my 0 down, so that my answer is then starting in the tens place. I'm going to multiply 3 times 4. And that's going to give me 12. I'm going to carry my 1. Then I'm going to multiply 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 1 more is 10. So 34 times 30 gives me a product of 1,020. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply 46 times 31 using partial products. So I have my partial products all set up so that I can multiply 40 times 30, 6 times 30, 40 times 1, and then 6 times 1. Then I get my final product of 1,426. And now I'm going to add that to 1,020. 1,020 is how many fish they caught in June. 1,426 is how many fish they caught in July. And because my problem is asking me for both, I need to add those two products together. I end up with a final product, or a final answer rather, of 2,446 fish were caught in those 2 months. All right, let's take a look at our next problem. Leilani sold 28 adult tickets and 16 child tickets for her play. Adult tickets cost $19 each and child tickets cost $15 each. How much money did she collect from ticket sales? Go ahead and write your equation for this problem, focusing on adult tickets and child tickets. All right, we have 28 adult tickets, and I need to know how much adult tickets cost. So it tells me adult tickets cost $19 each. So in order to figure out how much adult tickets were, I would be multiplying 28 times 19. Then I need to look at the child tickets. So 16 child tickets, and each child ticket costs $15. So in order to figure out how much she's going to make from child tickets, I would multiply 16 times 15. Then my problem says, how much money did she collect from ticket sales? Well, adult tickets and child tickets are both ticket sales, so I'm going to be adding these two products together. Go ahead and solve for these two products. I'm going to use the area model to solve over here. So I'm going to start with 10 times 10, and that's going to give me 100. 10 times 6 gives me 60. 10 times 5 is 50. And 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to add down. And then I'm going to add these two pieces together, and I end up with $240 for 16 times 15. Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to multiply 28 times 19. So 8 times 9 gives me 72. I carry my 7. 9 times 2 gives me 18, plus 7 more is 25. I'm going to put my placeholder. Then I'm going to multiply 1 times 8, and I get 8. And then 1 times 2 gives me 2. And my final step here is to add my pieces together. And I end up with $532. My final step is to add these two products together in order to get my total number of ticket sales, or the total price that she collects in ticket sales. When I add these two pieces together, I get $772 is how much she collects for ticket sales. The important takeaway from this lesson is take a look at your problem. When you see those each, connect it to what it's talking about. Figure out what you're going to multiply. If you're going to add your two products, subtract your two products, think about what the question's asking. Go step by step, write your equation, and then solve your equation using order of operations. So do that multiplication first before you do any addition. That's our lesson for today. See you tomorrow when we review Chapter 3.